All right, item 3.8, professional service agreement with
Don't even bother presenting. I'm joking.
Albert A. Webb and Associates for planning and environmental services for creation of a city-initiated specific plan for the Old Town are presented. Is that right? By Community Development Director Robert Flores.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Last but not least, we do have this agreement before the council today for contractual services, planning services for the proposed and anticipated Old Town specific plan along Palomar within that Old Town area. Again, I want to get started with staff recommendations. Staff does recommend approval of this item as presented in the staff report, which includes authorizing the city manager to execute the agreements and appropriate supplemental funds from Fund 110 within fiscal year 2026-2027 to cover associated costs for the agreement and the specific plan effort. Now, I wanted to get started with this slide just to show a visual representation of some images that are actually found in our RFP documents that we received that will visually represent outcomes of a well-planned area. Most of these images are from specific plan documents, but one thing that I want to emphasize with these images, besides the effectiveness of specific plans, is that although features you see on the slides may come to fruition on a project-by-project basis under general policy and regulatory documents, the specific plan allows for a holistic approach to well-planned areas. Specific plans provide for consistent and orderly development under one framework and not in a piecemeal fashion. So I hope that the previous slide helped paint a picture of the outcome of an area that's planned under a specific plan, but why does this project matter? A specific plan is more than just a planning document. The plan can provide for several opportunities, including establishing or reestablishing the community's vision that may create a path forward for a true historic destination while preserving the historic character and possibly making this area the heart of Wildomar. In addition to consistent and orderly development, the specific plan can promote a walkable and healthy community, create gathering spaces, and support both local business and economic development. Having a specific plan provides a level of certainty for development that may attract private investment by creating a roadmap for the next 20 years of investment and revitalization. Now, the specific plan may, in fact, be one of the most significant planning efforts for this area since incorporation. Without the plan, development may be disjointed, uncoordinated. Streetscapes and gathering spaces will not have a united theme. Economic development opportunities may be missed, and historic resources may not be integrated into the fabric of the development or even may be lost. With the specific plan, there's one vision, one implementation strategy, one set of development standards, one community identity, and one roadmap for public and private investment, which will create a predictable framework that is what investors are looking for. As you can see on the slide, besides the programmatic benefits of the plan, the effort under the proposed agreement will provide a long list of tangible documents prepared by the consultant that can lead up to adoption of the plan that details the future of this Old Town area. Now, I want to emphasize this. From day one, staff will ensure that this is a community-driven plan that establishes a community vision using the 2013 visioning effort as a foundation, as a starting point. Community outreach is of utmost importance to the plan and foundational to the process. Webb, in their proposal, presented a robust outreach program that provides several opportunities for decision makers and community members alike to get involved, from initial meetings and foundational vision setting events to public participation and selection of the final land use plan. In addition to several opportunities to provide direct feedback from the planning commissioners, city council members, and stakeholders such as businesses and residents, we'll have 2 community meetings additional outreach pop-up events, workshops, and a survey that are all part of the plan put forward by Webb for this project. This level of outreach is actually typical of a planning effort such as a comprehensive update of the general plan, which is an indicator of the comparable importance of the city-initiated specific plan, especially in this area that does not have one large property owner to take on this effort, making this a prime opportunity for the city to drive the future of this area. Now, as part of our transparency effort, there are a few things the community should know for this type of planning effort. No immediate changes to existing businesses and residents is necessary. A specific plan does not require property owners to develop their property or sell it. Rather, it creates opportunity and possibly value for the land or business. However, if adopted, the specific plan may include requirements such as improvements and other requirements on current development and businesses should they choose to develop or redevelop that land. One benefit that can be found in a specific planned area is economic viability. This plan is, in its implementation, may increase activity for existing businesses, create community identity, identify well-planned infrastructure and improvements, and induce greater investment or reinvestment for the Old Town area with a framework that facilitates the development while maintaining the community character. The specific plan may, if aligned with the community vision, celebrate and maintain the history of the area and Wildomar itself. As you can see on the slide, there are several analyses and surveys. Historic preservation is an important part of the work plan prepared for this project. Now, this planning effort is anticipated to take about 1.5 to 2 years, with much of this time slated for community outreach and input. We are not in a hurry to finish this, but we do want to ensure that the plan is adequate and community-driven. Where we can, we will be efficient to ensure that the plan is in place before inconsistent development occurs, but we want quality over quantity. And lastly, the total cost of this robust planning effort is approximately $450,000 per the agreement. To put this into perspective, the latest update to the general plan, not including the housing element, costed approximately $1.5 million. This type of investment in the community will establish a well-thought-out, well-established, community-driven framework to guide investment in this area for decades to come. With that, I conclude my report, and I'm available to answer any questions and look forward for feedback from the council and the community alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for that presentation. City Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
All right, we'll bring up our conversation to the dais.
Okay. Did we make any progress? I think Ashley mentioned this last time about establishing that area as an old town or historic area.
So the proposal as presented does have features that work towards identifying a structure in order to designate this area. We did do a little bit of research on our end from as far as staff, and we looked at state designations and federal designations of this effort. Typically, in those instances, it takes about a year, 1.5 years for the process, and it can cost tens of thousands to over 100,000 just to create the reports and go through the process to designate an area. But there's also an option for like a local designation and local ordinances that would allow us to designate that area locally. And that's something that we can look at with the specific plan, and with all the efforts and all the historic resources and studies we're going to be doing, we can establish that framework in order to achieve that designation.
I ask because, so by doing this, by proceeding with this framework, or even the local municipal ordinance, designating that area, whatever area we decide, as a historic Old Town, whatever we want to call it, does it provide any legal safeguards from like California? Just putting their finger on the button, or on the scale.
So If I understand what you're asking correctly, a lot of the housing bills
Yeah, that kind of stuff, yeah.
require certain things. A lot of these bills and these requirements from the state do provide for if an area is designated as historic, it may not qualify for those streamlined processes and projects. And local designation does, from my understanding, does qualify to disqualify certain projects
Okay.
in this area.
My last question, thank you. How are we paying for it?
We are paying for it through development agreement funds that we receive.
Okay.
So that's going to be transferred into a fund that's going to pay for this effort. So it's
Okay,
not
so there's no general fund.
No general fund.
Okay. And this will be something that, this will be a living document that we can kind of hold on to for the next 20, 30 years?
This will be
Right.
our document. It'll be a city and actually all specific plans, even if they're applicant driven, are city documents, city
Okay.
policy documents. And we will be able to amend it, update it, and do what we feel is necessary with the document.
The only thing I want to avoid is this, I feel like I'm in favor of it, but if we go forward with it and there's a bunch of recommendations, what I would hate to do is 10 years from now have to come back and like, well, we have to do another study because this is out of date now. Like,
Well, typically,
I mean, that always seems to be the case.
yeah, typically specific plans have a lifespan or a shelf life, if you will, of about 20 years.
Okay.
So you, just like a general plan and other long-range planning documents, you do want to update those
Yeah, yeah.
as things change, but it's not going to be in 10 years unless there's, some item that needs to be addressed that just during implementation we can't, it just doesn't work. But staff can take on that effort. At that point, for minor changes, we don't need to contract with anybody. Staff can actually handle that minor change.
Okay. And before going forward with this, I mean, I'm assuming we tell the contractor, hey, this is the area we're looking at, or do they look at the entire city?
No, we actually, through our RFP process, this actually did go through the formal RFP process. We identified the area, the goals, and the vision, and they presented us with a proposal, so they're well aware of the area.
Okay.
We will be discussing that, whether, we need to add a portion in, remove a portion out, because it doesn't make sense, but generally, the area is already defined.
All right, and we're aware that there's a fault line right there across the street?
We are aware of that, and there is,
Why wouldn't there be? Yeah.
just a point of clarification, we're not, with the proposal, it's not going to be actually providing the studies on
Yeah.
fault. It's just going to be providing a framework. We're going to be looking at data that's already existing to see where these fault lines
Yeah,
are,
exactly.
to establish requirements for future development to actually address that.
Boundaries or whatever it is,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Councilmember Moore?
So kind of on the same lines as my colleague, so if a builder was to come in and build that large parcel at Palomar and Wildemar Trail, right now, like while we're doing this, they wouldn't be able to do that?
Right now, they would be able to come in under the existing general plan and municipal code, but we do have that overlay boundary that guides that development while we adopt this specific plan. So there's some limitation, but they still do fall under, and they can develop under the existing requirements without the specific plan.
And right now, do we have any prospects?
We do not have any prospects, and that overlay does kind of restrict what they can do in that area. So it's still kind of in line with the vision, but it doesn't provide the full scope of what we need to really control the development.
And so where is the area? So like how far south?
So it's along Palomar, as far north as Wesley, and then as far south as McVicker. And then along Wildemar Trail, there is about a 1 mile stretch to the east that captures Wildemar Trail as part of this area as well. And it's
Okay, so-
approximately 300 acres.
So from Wildemar Trail, east and west, you're saying a mile?
So on Palomar,
Yeah,
along
on Palomar.
Palomar, from McVicker to the south to Wesley.
Wesley.
But then there's like an extension on Wildemar Trail that's to the east. So there's an additional piece that stretches into Wildemar Trail, but it's mostly along Palomar.
Okay. So what could someone then, with this now having a specific plan, what could they build on that large parcel? Just generally?
Well, we haven't established a
Okay.
specific plan, so we don't know that. That's what we will be talking about
Okay.
with the community and seeing what do you want to see there, and then we can possibly make changes to that. Currently, that's a commercial piece, so they can develop anything in our commercial zone, general commercial zone, with the limitation of no gas stations, no car washes and things of that nature. And also, the overlay restricts them and requires them to actually develop the site in accordance to this effort with the specific plan.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Hey, before you move on real quick, I just, after or if this is approved, can we limit or prohibit development until the study is complete in those areas?
That would be a question I would have to lean on our city attorney to answer.
Just in that way, we're not wasting money,
Sure, you can do,
or certain types of development, maybe. It's just,
you could consider a development moratorium in that area while the studies and while the specific plan is being completed. Although there's some recent case law that says you have to have a pending application to do, so there's really no need to do one right now because there's no applications pending.
I feel like that would be more of a reason for them to sue us if they were applying and then, okay. But
Case
that's
law
something we
says
could do if something would, okay. Okay.
Because you do it as an urgency measure, so you do it so it's effective immediately.
Okay.
So you got to show that there's something urgent happening, and what that urgency is there's an application.
Okay. My thought with that, with my colleagues, is just, if we're going to spend the money,
You also got to consider they're only effective for 2 years, so the time, a moratorium, the maximum amount of time is 2 years.
Oh.
So the timing's got to line up right. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's
how
true.
long this specific plan will take to be adopted and to be effective.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want your moratorium time to run out before.
While we're still in the study.
While you're still processing specific.
I wouldn't want to waste the money, and then, that's all, that's
Correct.
my thinking with that.
I mean, if Robert starts getting applications, we can.
Then, yeah, okay.
And our code requires a pre-application, so we'll know well ahead before they submit entitlements when something's coming.
Okay.
So one clarification, so could you say pending, and I don't think it affects us, but we have the veterinarian that's trying to open behind Montague's or behind,
That is actually outside of the boundary of
Okay.
the specific plan, so it doesn't affect it, and
Yeah.
it will continue to move forward.
okay.
Yeah, lucky.
All right. Well, we'll move on to Councilmember Morbido. I'm actually eager to hear your comments since this is right in your district.
Sure.
Or the majority of this.
All right, well, let me just ask a opening question based on some of the stuff I heard. So this wasn't going to be paid for out of general funds, correct?
Correct.
But they are Wildemar funds.
They are Wildemar funds, and I'll lean on Mr. Jans to explain more if I can't. But from my understanding, they're funds and revenue that we have obtained through our development agreements, either through cannabis or any other agreement. And so those funds are sitting there, and we will transfer them into a fund that will pay for this effort.
Right, but I mean, it's not like we got make up a grant, that's only for sidewalks over here or something. It's still Wildemar money, so.
It is still,
Well, I think the clarification is, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be something that's for the community benefit. So it's, we can't just use it for
Willy-nilly.
whatever we want, right?
Yes, so the development agreements for cannabis specific specify that it's for community development to commensurate with the private benefits that were conferred with the allowances of the development agreement to sell cannabis for those items.
And some may argue that it would be more of a stretch for this use versus, let's say, part of a park. That's a little more direct, or even part of a Veterans Memorial or something. But anyway, so with that, I'll just say, so I have a couple points written down. I'll just say, though I don't really get the concept of manufacturing a historical area, I like the general idea. But it's way too much money. It's a third of the price of our general plan update. Now because this third point has got a bunch of questions, so I do want answers, but maybe some of the answers, there might be one answer for 5 questions, and they are pointed, and so, I apologize if these aren't nice, but, so here it is. Where are the landowners of most of those impacted areas? Why are they here tonight? I don't see anybody out there. If not, why not? What type of outreach to them was done? Did they respond? If they didn't respond, how many times was contact attempted before we gave up? Did we post a notice on the properties? Did we post the item anywhere near there, like the usual billboard thing that would be like across from Montague Brothers? Hey, meeting tonight, meeting 2 weeks from now. So I'll pause at that third point. I've got 2 small ones after that, but do we have any responses to that?
So-
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to address that. One of the main reasons why this particular firm was selected from the firms that submitted proposals is that their proposal included a very heavy dose of community engagement, community outreach. Everything that you described is part of the process ahead of us through this specific plan. Now, I understand your point, which is, maybe we'd like to get feedback from property owners before even deciding whether to move forward, right? But that is part of the process itself. We very intentionally picked a firm in a process that included reaching out, and part of our commitment as staff will be to make sure that the property owners that are affected are included. There will be workshops with the community. There will be multiple opportunities because the whole concept is for the community to come together and help decide the vision for this area of the city, not for it to be dictated by a consultant or even the council, or certainly not staff, but for the community, people who are going to be living in this vision, to come together and contribute to it. But that's an extensive process, and that's not something that we can do internally. We have the bandwidth to do internally. It's one of the main reasons why we need a consultant to help us through the process.
Appreciate that. I would just say that, because you mentioned community engagement, which is great, but if you guys are planning community engagement on my property without telling me ahead of time, you're going to have a problem. I mean, and I don't have any property but my little house. So I'd have to think somebody's got, is that 10 acres, 6 acres, whatever it is, and then across the way that used to be like a U-Haul place for a while, they might be thinking the same things, like, you're going to tell me what my future property can and can't be. It just seems counterproductive or counterintuitive to me, the guy who says that he's property owner, property land owner's rights guy. So that's there. So with my fourth point was, so what did we do with that area in the general plan update or the 2013 visioning project?
So actually, this item and this effort is consistent with the general plan. So the general plan is a citywide effort. It doesn't get into the details of specific areas. That's why this specific plan is ideal. But the general plan did identify several areas throughout the city that are focus areas for specific plans. One of those areas is the Bluffs property, which is going through a specific plan. Another area is this Old Town area. So it was anticipated by the general plan for this to undergo this type of effort. And as I believe, what was your second question?
Or the 2013 visioning project. If we already have something out there, I'm not sure.
So the 2013 visioning project it was a long time ago. So this effort will incorporate that. Like I said, it's going to be a starting point, but that vision may have changed. So it may not be the same. If it is the same, then we will move forward with that vision. If it's not the same, that's the purpose of the community outreach, so we can obtain that feedback and identify if there's a property owner that doesn't want any change on their property, then we can leave it alone and ensure that the vision is still the same or establish a vision in order to move this project forward, and this specific plan can speak to that vision.
Sure. And I remember reading when this came up last time, because there was like a 70-page PDF booklet or something in there, and one of the comments in there, I don't know who to attribute it to, but it had said, in addition to this, and you kind of alluded to it, that we won't be doing certain studies, but it did say expensive seismic studies would also need to be done. And so it's one of those deals where name anything that's got two parts, but you're really only anticipating the first part. So,
but
I mean, what they're saying, no, that for the whole, I don't know, because actually where they were talking about, I would assume everywhere.
If I may, as Councilmember Nate alluded to earlier, there is a fault line that we've identified in this area. So even without this specific plan, anybody that wants to come develop on that property, they have to provide a study to identify the fault line and how that's going to be addressed. So there's no difference to what's required now. I believe the proposal just said that in addition to what we're going to do, which are the studies that I listed in my presentation, future development will still have to do precise studies to identify the fault line and identify any buffers and things of that nature. But that's being done, that would be required to be done now as well.
Right. I just wanted to mention that was in the package of it that was presented to us last month. So where that would fall, I don't know. I know part of the reason we want to do this, it turns it into a turnkey project for who wants to take the ball and move forward. And I would love it if there's somebody just waiting outside the door, like, I can't wait till they get that done, and I'm next. I'm going to just jump in there. But I don't have that, those same warmy feelings that's going to happen. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, because if you go to these meetings where you said community outreach and whatnot, it feels like it's going to happen right then. I can think back more than 10 years ago where we were doing a parks master plan, and it felt like, oh my gosh, look at all these parks in Wildemar. Pretty much nothing's happened, other than we do have the one in McVicker. But, so that's all I'm saying, is that I know that that's the idea, to get it to a turnkey. All right, so my last point here is that there's currently a specific plan being developed for the Bluffs. My understanding is it's being pushed by the landowners, and it isn't being paid for by the city. I approve that model when it comes to specific plans. They pay, we don't. So it may go 4-1. We'll see.
If I may, like I mentioned earlier, in the Bluffs area, that's one property owner, and they can undertake that effort to plan out that area because it is a significant area. Within the Old Town area, we have multiple property owners. So to gain coordination of all those property owners to undertake an effort like this would be complicated. So like I said, the city taking on this effort would help facilitate that process and plan that area well without that's why it's a city-initiated specific plan, not an applicant-driven specific plan. Because there's no one property owner that owns 170 acres just like they do with the Bluffs.
Sure. And I appreciate your answers. And let me just say, look, I've been told I can be argumentative, and I don't want to argue with you about it. We're just having a conversation, get the facts out there.
Of course.
So I don't have any issues with staff or anything, but I'm just saying that, so I gave my views already. I don't need to reiterate them. So there we go. Thank you.
Sorry. That dovetails nicely, the end of your comments, with some of my questions. So understanding that it's about 300 acres, how many properties are there in that area that are affected?
I don't have a count of the properties. I will say there are a lot of small lots, which is something we're looking forward to addressing. And I believe some of these small lots actually have the fault lines, so there's very limited area that can be developed. But there are also some larger pieces, anywhere between 5 and 10 acres each, and a lot of vacant land that's prime for opportunity, but I don't have the actual count of the parcels that are in that area.
Do you have a count of the empty parcels in the area?
We actually do have that information, but I don't have it with me today.
Okay. Another question I have, what kind of interest has been shown in this area for especially the vacant properties?
Interest as far as development?
Yeah.
So specifically along this area, besides the projects we already have in that area, I believe there's been 1 or 2 inquiries. One, I believe, was identified as a U-Haul location previously. Somebody showed interest in wanting to establish something there, but we also shared that there was this plan potentially moving forward, and also. There was one inquiry about the larger parcel on the corner of Palomar and Wildemar Trail, but with the limitations that we currently have in our code, that was like a gas station, car wash type deal. That kind of went away. But other than that, I don't recall any other inquiries or activity besides the 2 housing projects that we have along that area.
Okay, thank you. So I guess that's just one of the concerns I have is if we don't do this, what are we leaving it to? What kind of, like, do we want those kinds of projects right there, or do we want something better? That's my biggest interest in seeing something like that. Right. All right. So that said, you mentioned local designation. So I had the same interest in this, as Dustin was explaining, with protecting the area. So you're saying a local designation would give it similar protections from potentially from some of the
state legislation? Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So that designation or that criteria that the projects need to meet applies to local, state, and federal designations. Mm-hmm. And districts, because this would be a district, unless we can identify a structure that's historically significant, it would be a designation of the district, and those two comply with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And then Yeah, design, so just getting back to that question from last month, design and architectural guidelines, is that something that, so along the lines of what Joseph's saying, is that something we could address, those two things, if there is some kind of a in-between? I do have concerns about the amount of money that it is, but I also have a concern with how does it develop without us putting in some safeguards? And so that's where I'm at.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy because with the cannabis DAs, there has to be the community benefit. I mean, yes, you can do parks, you can do a bunch of different things, but the bottom line is there are certain things that are community benefits, and I think that an argument can be made. This is maybe not money I want to spend out of my own pocket, but if we have to say, hey, this is going to be a benefit, I think this could be a benefit to the entire community. So that's where I'm kind of.
I'd like to offer this, that I met with a resident that she lives in my district, and she actually was for this, and she didn't have a problem with the money. But I will say this, that let's just say, because there had been a little bit of money, and they did this in 2013, so the, whatever we call it, the specific plan or whatever.
The visioning project.
Visioning thing. Then that means 12 years later, actually that's 2013, so 13 years later, it would have been a waste of money in that if you wanted it to turn into a project. So there's every likelihood that that corner will be empty in 10 years. Because it's a fault line. It's not the great, look, we love it in Wildemar, but there's a house behind it that's, unless somebody's going to buy that and say, see you later. Sorry if you live there, you're in my district, but let's be real. Anyway, no, seriously, that's not the greatest. And across the way, it's all a very TLC area. It needs some tender loving care, the whole area. It's not a wide open nothing thing that you can just go put in a master area. So if somebody said, put your $20 down, I'm putting it on, it's going to be vacant in 10 years. And so to spend any money is, okay, but $450,000, budgeting that much, that's like, okay, that's beyond reasonable to me. But.
Councilmember Morbido, if I may, just want to add on the visioning document, one use of it that I'm aware of, we did use it as part of the design process for the Palomar Street widening. So it did inform like the color palette, the aesthetics that we chose between the trail and the crosswalks and the fencing. So I don't know if it's been used outside of that, but I just did want to just make that note.
And I will add that was an effort under a grant that was issued to the city. And, that was money well spent. It was engaging in the community, and we identified the vision. And with this effort, it would not let that go to waste. Besides some of the items we have used it for, it would actually further that. And our goal is to get it to the finish line and get an adopted specific plan where we can implement that vision.
So what I'm hearing is it wasn't a waste of money in 2013.
Nice.
All right. I've got some general comments on this. Let's see where to start. I guess the first thing I'll say is I share Joseph's sentiment around not being a fan of telling a property owner what they can and cannot do outside of what's an area is zoned for. I guess I have a concern, though, if this moves forward, would this restrict somebody from, saying, adding an ADU?
So on residential properties, no, they can continue to do that. Now, if you have a situation where through the process a residential property becomes commercial, then that if there's a residence on the property, that would become a legal nonconforming use, and an ADU won't be allowed in that sense. But I do want to explain that our goal is not to go and take the map and start recoloring it and making changes. Our goal is to maintain status quo, unless through the community outreach and through the vision, we need to make changes in certain, it's going to be very selective changes. We need to make changes, then we will implement that with the specific plan. But our goal is to be consistent with the general plan, consistent with zoning, but at a level of framework and a level of requirements that would help us achieve our vision and our goals.
All right. And I guess I also want to circle back to a comment that you made earlier, Robert, that property owners could opt out of being included in the specific plan.
Yeah.
So if that were to happen, do we risk having the stretch of area that is designated for the specific plan, but now we have, maybe gaps along the way.
So I didn't mean, and I'll correct myself if I did say it that way, I didn't mean opt out from being within the boundary of the specific plan, but opt out, like, for example, if it's a commercial use and that's what they anticipate doing, we will keep it commercial. But all other requirements like improvements to buildings, if it's a historic designation, if it's a historic building, it has to follow certain criteria. All those things will apply to the business, and all the things that make sense for this specific plan will apply, but we're just not going to mess with the use of the property.
Okay, so then just to follow up on that then, so, and maybe correct my understanding if it's wrong, but, so if a property owner, or their property is currently designated residential and they want to keep it residential, then we would keep it residential in the specific plan?
Well, I would say, real quick, wouldn't it be, we make it, we zone it commercial, they could stay as residential until there's a change of status, right? I mean, that's a benefit to the resident if we change the zoning to commercial for the property value.
Well, I think that's what I'm trying to get
Oh,
to,
okay.
because now if I want to add an ADU, he just said I can't do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, okay.
But keep in mind, and I want to just explain that the specific plan is, if you think of the general plan and the municipal code, and you marry those together, that's what a specific plan is over a geographical area. So this project has to be consistent with those documents, and will govern over that area. So we can build in provisions that would allow an ADU or allow legal nonconforming use, in addition to allowing an ADU on those, which currently we don't generally in the city. We can actually write in that provision. We're basically writing our own rules. Obviously, we want to be consistent with the general plan. We want to be consistent with our vision, but we can put in provisions to address if those kind of things are brought up to our attention through community outreach. We can find ways to write that into the specific plan to make things work.
Sure. All right. Going back to the cost, so you said it's about $450,000. Councilmember Morbido mentioned that, it's a substantial amount of money, and I might be putting words in your mouth, so if I am, just tell me. But, he mentioned the possibility of maybe using that for parks, right? And so, Adam, in the current cannabis funds, I think we have, 3.5 or 4.5 million?
Yes, approximately 4.5 million.
So approximately 4.5. We looked at the 20-acre park earlier for phase 0, A, B, plus phase 1. That's over 4.5, right? Or because it was about 4 million plus the additional million for phase 0, right? So in theory, could we use those funds to open the park? Yeah, but I think the other thing that we have to consider is the maintenance of the park. Monty's also talked about the enforcement and whether or not we'd be able to keep that. So I don't know that we can necessarily go ahead and open that park right away, or even with phase 0 and 1 with the funds that we have. So if that money is just sitting there right now, I think there is a community benefit to this. As they mentioned, it was something that was brought forth in 2013 during the visioning effort. And I think we're also going to be doing our due diligence to make sure that either, yes, this is in line with still in line with the community's vision for this area, or if not, they have the opportunity to engage, interact, and tell us what they want to see in this space.
Yes, sir.
All right, so.
Can I just add to my comments a little bit?
Yeah.
So I will say I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't any outreach, just because, even just knowing, I would feel more comfortable with this if I, knew how many properties, that there's been some outreach, all of that. I'd feel a lot more comfortable with this vote. So I just wanted to mention that for future, because I feel like we talked about it a bit last meeting. So I just wanted to mention that.
And then do we have a cost comparison on pursuing the local historical designation without the specific plan?
I believe when we looked at that, that local designation would be the one that was in the tens of thousands, so it could range anywhere, because each study can range anywhere from 10 to 20, 30,000, and then the process to designate that area and we would have to create a section in our code that identifies how to designate an area and what qualifies. So that whole process can be anywhere between, maybe $50,000 and $60,000 for that local designation. The ones that are more expensive from, if I recall correctly, are the state and federal designations.
All right, and then the last thing, or the last comment I have, and I feel like I'm getting mixed information on this, so I hope that, Robert, you can provide some clarity. With this specific plan, can we block an SB 35 project from coming into this area?
With the specific plan document itself, no, because it's still housing. The land use and zoning is still housing, so the bills would apply. But if we explore the designation of this area as a historic district, that's one of the criteria that those bills look at. And if that is designated as a historic district, then that may help try to prevent those projects from moving into that area. So it's a feature of the specific plan, not the specific plan itself.
Got it.
Well, and just to mention, I mean, I wish it went further north because we have two SB 330s, Wesley and Como, that are proposed. So, you know, my point is it's coming. And so if we don't do this, they can just keep coming down.
You know, also, we just paid for the general plan. How much did that cost? And we spent how much time, right?
It was approximately 1.5 million.
Yeah,
And it was
a lot
about
of time,
2 or
money, and
3
staff,
effort.
and residents. And you're telling me that we have different parts of the general plan where these areas are pinpointed for likely specific plan, right?
Yes.
Or specific plans. This is being one of them. I think we're doing our due diligence and we're being judicious. I mean, with kind of keeping the continuity of what we already spent money on and kind of keep the flow going. And we're not even spending out of the general fund. So, I mean, that's not a bad. I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Boom.
All right. I'll start with all opposed. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember Morbido voting no.